Hello, my name is Derek Cross. I am a student at Colorado State University Global Campus within the PJM 525 Business Analysis course under the instruction of Dr. Janie Master. This presentation is a continuation of our portfolio project and provides an introductory business requirements document for the selected case study. We will begin with a brief reintroduction to the case study and the purpose of our selected project. We will then discuss the process of eliciting requirements before discussing a few recommended requirements to be included in the case study project. We will then finish with some conclusions that we can draw about business requirements as a result. Let's begin by re-examining our case study scenario. We are acting as a business analyst for a manufacturing company that operates a cleanroom production environment for medical-grade products. The core issue is the organization's lack of insight into their critical production metrics, and the loss of this information is impacting many activities throughout the organization, such as staffing, equipment maintenance, and production scheduling. As a result, the company is being reactive to their production floor instead of proactive. To address this problem, we are suggesting the company invests in a real-time SCADA dashboard that will automatically collect and analyze production data as it occurs on the floor. Uden et al. Describe a SCADA system by writing, in SCADA, sensors feed data to control systems through hardware components. The control system is used to process all the data and display it using an HMI, or human-machine interface. These real-time data analytics will take the company from asking what happened last week to asking what is happening right now. It will also give the organization valuable data on which to base their decision-making. Now, let's discuss the process of eliciting requirements. In terms of business requirements, there are generally two categories. The first is general requirements, which are high-level statements of what the business wants to achieve and are usually non-specific. The second category is technical requirements, which are specific technical capabilities required to achieve the desired project outcome. When collecting business requirements, it is vital to involve all stakeholders in the process. This can be done in small groups through interviews or focus groups, larger collaborative settings like workshops, or asynchronously through surveys. Paul and Cadle write that the requirements list is produced after initial interview or workshop and is developed further once more requirements have been identified, further supporting the idea that the process of eliciting requirements must begin by collaborating with stakeholders. Once the requirements have been set, they must be validated. This ensures that the requirements are complete, consistent, and achievable. It also guarantees that each requirement is directly traceable to a stakeholder need. Let's discuss some recommended business requirements for the real-time production dashboard. Before discussing the individual requirements, let's first look at how each requirement is structured. First, each requirement is given a unique ID to make it easy for the project team and stakeholders to reference. In this case, general requirements start with a G prefix, and technical requirements start with a T prefix to further clarify the intent of the requirement. Next is the requirement itself, followed by a brief description of the rationale behind why the requirement has been included. Next is an identification of the stakeholder that identified the need for the requirement. Specific names can be used, but it is preferable to identify the stakeholder by role in case of personnel change during the project. The final column is a brief overview of how the requirement should be validated, providing proof that the requirement is complete. The first requirement, G01, states that the requirement must be visible to production staff from every workstation within the cleanroom. Employees need to be able to see the data to utilize it within their decision-making process. This requirement was a need identified by the production supervisor. In order to validate that this requirement is complete, the project team can take a picture from each workstation to prove that the dashboard is visible from that location. The next requirement, G02, states that the dashboard must be accessible via web browser and not tied to a single physical location. Non-production staff also need to access the data to utilize it within higher level decision-making processes and eliminate the need for a specialized software required to view the dashboard. This requirement was a need identified by the business analyst. In order to validate that this requirement is complete, the project team can host the dashboard on a server and verify access is possible via web browser. The next requirement, G03, states that the dashboard must automatically distribute weekly reports in Excel and PDF format. This will preserve the current summary cadence in addition to providing the real-time data, and creates historical records that can be easily referenced by all employees. This requirement was a need identified by the business analyst. In order to validate that this requirement is complete, the project team can build a prototype of the file export feature prior to launch. The first technical requirement, T01, states that the dashboard must integrate with the existing Active Directory implementation to utilize single sign-on or SSO functionality. According to PR Newswire, SSO enhances authentication and security by eliminating the need for separate login credentials for each service. This requirement was a need identified by the IT system administrator. In order to validate that this requirement is complete, the project team can prototype the login system ahead of deployment and ensure the SSO feature is working as intended. The next requirement, T02, states that the dashboard's underlying data must be read accessible only. This means that no employee will be able to overwrite existing data and will preserve the data integrity of the system. This requirement was a need identified by the database architect. In order to validate that this requirement is complete, the project team can attempt to overwrite the data and ensure that no changes were actually made to the underlying data. The next requirement, T03, states that the dashboard must only be accessible while connected to a company-owned network to prevent competitors and bad actors from obtaining proprietary data. According to Alotaibi, IIoT security issues represent one of the biggest challenges hindering its perfect utilization. This requirement was a need identified by the IT system administrator. In order to validate that this requirement is complete, the project team can attempt to log in when connected and disconnected to the company network and compare the results. The final example requirement, T04, states that the dashboard must be accessible from a mobile device. The quality engineering team travels between multiple sites each day, but does need access to the data from all sites in case of an emergency. This requirement was a need identified by the quality engineer. In order to validate that this requirement is complete, the project team can test each mobile device to ensure that connection to the dashboard is possible over the company VPN. Let's look at some final conclusions we can draw about business requirements documentation. To be successful, projects need to satisfy the requirements that were identified at the inception of the project. Therefore, eliciting and documenting these requirements is one of the most critical processes in a project. The elicitation of requirements should include all relevant stakeholders and cover a broad array of requirements: general, technical, functional, and non-functional. Finally, each requirement needs to be validated to ensure that it is directly traceable to a stakeholder need and that it is also correct and complete when the project is delivered. The cited references will follow shortly. Thank you for listening and have a great day.